I still remember the sparkle in her eyes that day. Rachel was on the stage of the university auditorium at NYU, wearing a dark blue graduation gown, holding her law degree, and waving at me like a child who had just won a prize. My chest swelled with pride. I worked 2 jobs, gave up vacations, and even sold my old Honda Civic so she could chase that dream. When she ran into my arms after the ceremony with tears in her eyes, I thought we had made it. Together. In the audience, her mother, Mrs. Clark, was wiping away tears while her father, Mr. Anderson, took pictures non-stop with that old camera he carried everywhere. Her friends, all classmates, were shouting and throwing their caps in the air on the lawn in front of the faculty building. It was a warm November day in New York, with that blue sky that rarely appears in the gray city. "We did it, Ryan," she whispered in my ear when I hugged her. "It was because of you." We organized a small celebration at the apartment we were renting in the East Village. Nothing too grand, beer, snacks, and that chocolate cake with coconut, filling that our neighbor Mrs. Smith insisted on baking. Her parents, a few friends from college, and 2 colleagues from the law firm where she was an intern were there. I felt exhausted, but fulfilled. I worked as an IT technician during the day and a rideshare driver at night to ensure she could dedicate herself entirely to her studies. It was only the following week, on an ordinary Tuesday, that everything fell apart. I got home from work early. I had bought flowers to celebrate her first week as a qualified lawyer. She was sitting at the kitchen table, quiet, with a blue folder in front of her. "We need to talk," she said without looking me in the eyes. I put the flowers on the counter and sat down. Inside the folder, divorce papers. I looked at the documents in silence, my breath caught between disbelief and devastation. "I need to find myself, Ryan," she said in a voice that didn't sound like hers. Cold, distant. "All these years you've done so much for me that I don't even know who I am without you anymore. I need to find out." I didn't ask why. I didn't yell. I just signed the papers. And with the scribble of a pen, I watched everything I had invested in, emotionally, financially, spiritually, leave my life. That night, when she left with 2 large suitcases, I sat on the sofa, staring at the white living room wall. The apartment had never seemed so big and empty. On the shelf there were photos from our trip to Montauk, her birthday in the Hamptons, and the day we met at the book fair in Bryant Park. I didn't shed a single tear. I think I was in shock. We were together for 5 years, building a life, planning a future. And in one afternoon it was all over. She didn't look back, and I didn't run after her. That was the part that haunted me the most afterward. Not that she left, but that I let her go without saying a word. That same night I put all the photos in a box. I took off the engagement ring I had been wearing for 3 years and put it in the dresser drawer. I drank a whole bottle of cheap wine sitting on the kitchen floor staring at the ceiling. What hurt the most wasn't the betrayal, if you can call it that. It was thinking that maybe, all that time, while I believed we were building something together, she was just waiting for the right moment to leave. The next day, with a pounding head, I called Ben, my best friend since high school in Queens. He came running, bringing bacon, egg, and cheese bagels, and strong coffee from the corner deli. "She was always too much for you, man," he said, trying to console me. But we both knew it wasn't true. I loved her exactly the way she was. The first few months were a blur of empty coffee cups, late-night walks on the High Line, and long stares at a silent phone. Her number was still saved. Sometimes, my finger would hover over the screen, trembling, wondering if she missed me, but I never called. She made her choice. I had to respect it, even if it was destroying me inside. I moved to a smaller place, a studio apartment in the West Village. The rent was cheaper and I could walk to work. I got a promotion at the IT company where I worked, going from technician to systems analyst. The salary improved a bit. I stopped driving for rideshare apps. That was slowly killing me. I learned to cook for just one person. It was painful, of course, but slowly the pain lessened. Not because I was healing, but because the pain eventually becomes background noise. You learn to live with it, like a person with a limp learns to walk. On weekends, I started going to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I'd see the free concerts, visit the exhibitions, and attend photography workshops. That's where I met Louisa, a public school history teacher. She had a gentle smile and infinite patience for listening to my stories. We went out a few times. We went to the movies, had dinner at cheap restaurants downtown. She was good company, but every time she tried to get closer, I would pull away. It wasn't fair to her. "You're still hung up on someone," she told me one night, after I had dodged a kiss for the third time. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. It was too obvious. Louisa stopped calling me after that night. I didn't blame her. Ben kept insisting I go out, meet new people, start living again. He took me to barbecues, introduced me to his friends, dragged me to bars in the meatpacking district. I would go, smile, and talk. But it was as if a part of me was always absent, watching everything from a distance. "It's time to move on, man," he'd tell me. And I agreed. But it was easier said than done. Slowly, I created a new routine. I'd wake up early, go for a run in Central Park before work. At night, I'd study programming or read a book. I started saving money again. I bought a used car, a silver Ford Focus from 2012. Nothing special, but it was mine. No debt, no late payments, not depending on anyone. One Sunday, I called my mom in Boston. She asked about Rachel, as she always did. This time, I told her the whole truth. That we had been separated for almost a year. That she had left right after graduating. That I had paid for everything to see her achieve her dream, only to be left behind. "Son, sometimes we love more than we deserve," my mom said with that simple wisdom of someone who has lived a lot. "But that doesn't mean you should stop loving. It just means you need to learn to love the right way." On the 2-year anniversary of our separation, I did something that surprised me. I took out the box of photos I had saved and looked at each one. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel sadness. Just a light nostalgia, like someone looking at a life that belonged to another person. That night, I deleted her number from my phone. That's when I started to feel truly free. Not because I had completely moved on, but because I finally understood that life goes on, with or without her. I started teaching computer classes on weekends at a community center in the Bronx. It was volunteer work, but it felt good to help those kids, to see their eyes light up when they learned something new. On long weekends, I started traveling alone. I went to the Berkshires, to Cape Cod. I drove to the Poconos and stayed in a simple cabin with a view of the mountains. I met new people, made fleeting friendships. Once on a beach in Montauk, a woman asked me why I always seemed to be looking at the horizon. "I'm just reminding myself to come back to the present," I replied. 2 years passed like that. No messages, no chance encounters. It was as if she had disappeared. And just when I had finally accepted that I would never see her again, life, the damned life, had other plans. Time passed without me noticing. The seasons changed, the governments changed, even I changed. I got a small tattoo on my forearm, a symbol that represented a new beginning. I grew a beard, then shaved it all off. I experimented, I failed, I succeeded. Little by little, I was relearning to be myself, without defining my existence by her absence. It was a rainy Tuesday in June, one of those typical for a New York summer. I got out of the subway at Columbus Circle and ran to take shelter from the light drizzle that was falling nonstop. I went into the Barnes & Noble just to escape the rain, wiping the drops from my glasses with the sleeve of my shirt. I wasn't looking for anything specific, just killing time before a meeting with a client. That's when I saw her. She was in the poetry section, her back to me, flipping through a book by Walt Whitman. My heart skipped a beat. Rachel hadn't changed much. Same posture, same way of slightly tilting her head when she read. But her shoulders seemed heavier. Sadder, perhaps. I should have left. Let the ghost remain a ghost. But I didn't. I approached slowly, as if she might disappear if I moved too fast. She turned and saw me, and for a moment time folded in on itself. Her eyes widened. A second passed. Then, almost in a whisper, she said, "I expected to run into you someday." I stood paralyzed, not knowing what to say. She was different, yet the same. Shorter hair, a few premature gray streaks that weren't there before. She was wearing a gray pantsuit, probably coming straight from work. A thin wedding band shone on her left hand. "Are you okay?" she asked, closing the book. "Want to grab a coffee?" My mind screamed for me to refuse, to make up an excuse, to run away. But my traitorous mouth replied, "Sure." We went down to the cafe in the bookstore's basement. We sat at a table in the corner, away from the other people. I ordered an espresso. She, a chamomile tea. The silence weighed between us like concrete. "You disappeared," she began. "Changed your number, left the apartment." "You left," I retorted, colder than I intended. "What did you expect me to do?" She lowered her eyes, embarrassed. "I know, it was unfair." The waitress brought our orders. I stirred my coffee without drinking it. Rachel took off her wedding band and placed it on the table, as if getting rid of a weight. "It didn't work out," she said, pointing at the ring. "I married Gus, a partner at the firm. It lasted 8 months. I felt nothing, neither satisfaction nor pity, just a strange emptiness." "And you?" she asked. "Are you with someone?" I shook my head. "Had a few dates, nothing serious." She spoke first. She told me she had made a mistake. That leaving me wasn't about me, but about her trying to escape a version of herself she no longer recognized. That, the success she thought she wanted, felt empty without someone to share it with. "I thought about you every day," she confessed. Her voice choked. The silence became unbearable. I realized too late the difference between freedom and loneliness. We were silent for a moment, with only the sound of cups and conversations around us. "I looked for you on Facebook, on Instagram," she continued. "You deleted everything." "I needed to start over," I replied simply. The truth is, I had done it so I wouldn't be tempted to keep looking at her life, torturing myself with images of her happiness without me. "How are your parents?" I asked, trying to change the subject. "My dad passed away last year. A heart attack." She wiped away a discreet tear. "My mom sold the house and moved to Staten Island to live with her sister." "I'm sorry about your dad," I said sincerely. "Mr. Anderson was always kind to me." She took a sip of her tea and asked about my work. I told her I had been promoted, that I now coordinated a team, and that I was thinking of getting an MBA in IT management. She smiled, genuinely happy for me. That hurt more than it should have. "And the volunteering in the Bronx?" she asked. I was surprised. "How do you know about that?" "Ben told me." So she and Ben were still in touch. I felt a pang of betrayal, but it quickly passed. Ben had always been a friend to both of us. "I still do it," I replied. "We now have a room with donated computers. We're teaching basic coding to teenagers." She looked at me with something that seemed like admiration. "You were always a better person than me, Ryan." I didn't answer. Not because I had nothing to say, but because the words were stuck somewhere behind years of pain and swallowed pride. I nodded. I smiled. But inside, I was bleeding again. The rain had intensified outside. I could hear the strong noise against the cafe windows, as if the sky had finally decided to fall. "Do you think," she hesitated, spinning her empty cup between her fingers, "do you think we can try again?" That question hung in the air between us. The sound of the rain seemed to amplify the silence of my response. I ordered another coffee, more to buy time than to drink it. "Rachel," I began, choosing my words carefully, "don't you think it's a little late for that?" She swallowed hard. "Probably, but I had to ask." The cafe was full now, people escaping the storm outside. A jazz song played softly through the speakers. Next to us, a group of students were animatedly discussing a college project. Life was going on as normal, while mine seemed frozen in that moment. "What really happened?" I finally asked. "I never understood why you left like that." She took a deep breath, like someone preparing to dive into deep water. I panicked, she confessed. You did so much for me, sacrificed so much. I felt suffocated by gratitude, like I had an eternal debt I could never repay. And at the same time I had just graduated, I was full of job offers, of possibilities. I felt that if I didn't leave at that moment, I would never have the courage to. I was silent, absorbing every word. And Gus? I asked. He showed up at the right time, I guess. He offered me a position at his firm, an apartment in Tribeca, a completely different life from the one we had. She paused. But it was all superficial. I realized I was repeating the same pattern, just in reverse. He suffocated me with expensive gifts, trips, dinners at Michelin-starred restaurants. But there was no real connection. I looked out the window, watching the rain lash. Down on Fifth Avenue, executives ran with newspapers over their heads, trying to escape the water. A street vendor tried to protect his merchandise under the awning of a building. I didn't want to hurt you, she continued. I thought it would be easier for you if I just disappeared. Easier? I repeated with a bitter laugh. Do you have any idea what I went through? What I felt? Her eyes filled with tears. I imagined 1,000 times what it would have been like if I had talked to you, explained what I was feeling. But I didn't even understand it myself. I just knew I had to go. A thunderclap shook the cafe windows. Some people jumped. We remained still. You know what's worse? I said, breaking the silence. It wasn't that you left. It was that you waited for me to pay for your entire college education, waited until you had the diploma in hand, and then you left me. The words came out harsher than I intended, but they were true. She bowed her head, defeated. You're right, she admitted. It was selfish. I could have left sooner, but I was afraid I wouldn't be able to finish college alone. I needed your strength, your support. She looked up, her eyes red. Does that make me a terrible person, doesn't it? I didn't answer immediately. After all, what could I say? That yes, she was terrible? Or lie and say no? Both answers seemed inadequate. It makes you human, I finally said. We all make selfish mistakes. We were silent again. The rain was starting to let up outside. How's your life now? I asked, changing the subject. Professionally, I mean. She smiled slightly, grateful for the change of tone. I'm good. I left Gus's firm after the divorce, obviously. Now I work in the legal department of a multinational corporation in Midtown. Less glamorous, but more stable. You always wanted stability, I commented. Yes, she agreed. But I discovered that stability isn't just financial. It's emotional, too. I looked at my watch. I was already late for my meeting, but somehow it no longer seemed important. And you? She asked. Are you happy now? The question caught me by surprise. Happy? It was a word I hadn't used in a long time. I'm at peace, I replied honestly. I've learned to live with my choices, to not regret what I did for you even if it didn't work out in the end. She nodded, understanding what I didn't say, that a part of me still blamed her, that another part still wondered if I could have done something differently, that maybe I had never truly moved on. Can I show you something? She asked, opening her purse. She pulled out a worn leather wallet. She opened it and showed me, hidden behind her ID, a picture of us. On the beach in the Hamptons, wide smiles, sun on our faces. I didn't even remember that day. I never got rid of it, she confessed. Even when I was with Gus. Even when I tried to hate you for not coming after me. I felt something strange in my chest. It wasn't pain or anger. Maybe just the echo of a feeling that was once too strong to fit inside me. Why are you showing me this now? I asked. Because I want you to know that it was never just about money or about college, she replied. It was about us, about fear, about not knowing how to deal with so much good happening at the same time. The waitress came with the bill. I paid, despite her protests. We left the bookstore when the rain had already subsided to a light drizzle. Typical of New York, in a matter of minutes the sky goes from apocalypse to a melancholic mist. We walked side by side down Fifth Avenue, with no particular destination, just letting the conversation flow. "You didn't answer my question," she reminded me as we passed by St. Patrick's Cathedral. "About us trying again." I stopped walking. I looked at the cathedral's entrance where some people were taking shelter from the drizzle. A street performer was playing the guitar, the sound echoing in the concrete. "It's not that simple, Rachel," I replied. "It's not like we can press a reset button and go back to how we were before." "I know," she agreed. "I don't want to go back to what we were. I want to build something new, something better." We kept walking. We crossed Fifth Avenue toward Central Park. The green of the trees contrasted with the gray of the city. We went in, looking for a dry bench to sit on. The park was almost empty at that hour. "You know what I've learned in these years?" I asked when we finally sat down. "That forgiving isn't forgetting. It's not pretending that the pain never existed." She looked at me, waiting for me to continue. "Forgiving is recognizing that it happened, that it hurt, but choosing not to let that define who you are or how you see the other person." "And have you managed to do that?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. "Forgive me?" I looked at the sky through the treetops. The drizzle had stopped completely now, leaving only the smell of wet earth. "I'm trying," I replied honestly. "Every day." A squirrel crossed the path in front of us, stopping to observe us before climbing a tree. I smiled at the scene. Small moments like that reminded me that life goes on, despite everything. "When you left," I continued, "I spent a lot of time wondering what I had done wrong. If I hadn't been attentive enough, if I had suffocated you, if I had demanded too much." "It wasn't you," she interrupted. "It was never you." "I know that now," I said. "But it took me a while to understand. And in that process I realized something important. I can't control other people's choices, only my own." The sun began to appear shyly between the clouds, creating that golden light that comes after the rain. Some rays passed through the leaves of the trees, creating patterns on the dirt path. "What do you want, Ryan?" she asked, placing her hand on mine on the bench. "Really?" I felt the warmth of her skin, familiar and strange at the same time, like visiting a house you lived in a long time ago, recognizable, but it's no longer yours. "I don't know," I admitted. "A part of me still loves you, probably always will. But another part is afraid to trust again and be left behind one more time." She squeezed my hand lightly. "I understand that fear. I'm also afraid of not being good enough, of messing everything up again." An elderly couple passed us, walking hand in hand, laughing at some private joke. I found myself imagining what it would be like to grow old next to someone. If Rachel and I could have that someday. "Maybe we can start slow," I suggested, surprising myself. "As friends?" She smiled, but there was a shadow of disappointment in her eyes. "Friends," she repeated. "It's a start." "I'm not closing any doors," I explained. "I just think we need to get to know each other again. The people we are now, not the people we were before." She nodded, understanding. "You're right. You were always the more sensible one of us, too." "Not sensible," I corrected with a weak smile. "I've just burned my hand on the stove too many times to know I need to be careful." The sun was stronger now, drying the puddles on the path. Some children came into the park, running and laughing, enjoying the break in the rain. "There's something I need to tell you," she said, suddenly serious. "I'm thinking of accepting a job offer in Boston. An international firm is opening a branch there, and they invited me to be part of the initial team." I felt a tightening in my chest. "When are you leaving?" "I haven't accepted yet," she replied quickly. "I wanted to talk to you first, to see if it's worth it to stay." I took a deep breath. It was unfair. She was, once again, placing an important life decision in my hands, making me responsible for her future. "You have to make that decision yourself, Rachel," I said more firmly than I intended. "I can't promise you anything now." It wouldn't be fair to either of us. She lowered her eyes, biting her lip. You're right? Again. We were silent for a few minutes, just watching the park come to life around us. An artist sat not far away, setting up his easel to paint the landscape. How much time do you have to decide? I finally asked. A week, she replied. The offer is good, better than what I have here. Then I think you already have your answer, I said, trying to ignore the lump in my throat. She shook her head. It's not that simple. It never is, I agreed. I dropped Rachel off at the entrance of the Columbus Circle subway station. We exchanged phone numbers, promising to talk during the week. A quick hug, a hesitant kiss on the cheek, and she went down the stairs, disappearing into the crowd. I stood there for a few minutes, feeling the afternoon sun dry my clothes that were still damp from the rain. I walked to my car, parked on a parallel street. On the way, I called my client, rescheduling our meeting for the next day. I wasn't in a condition to discuss projects or deadlines. My head was somewhere else, in another time. I drove aimlessly through the city, just letting the traffic take me. I ended up on Flushing Avenue near those skate parks where we used to spend some Sundays, just watching the teenagers do tricks, eating popcorn. I parked and got out of the car. The sun was starting to set, painting the sky orange and pink. I sat on a bench watching the last skaters of the day. A boy about 14 years old was persistently trying a trick, falling several times, but always getting up to try again. There was something inspiring about that youthful stubbornness. I picked up my phone and saw that Rachel had already sent a message. It was good to see you today. Really? I didn't reply. Not yet. I thought about everything we had talked about the job offer she had in Boston, about the possibility of us trying again, about the person I was now, so different from that passionate guy who would do anything for her. I remembered Ben, who had told me several times that I deserved someone who chose me completely, not someone who saw me as an option. He would be angry if he knew I was considering giving Rachel a second chance. But Ben wasn't in my shoes. He didn't know what it was like to carry that unresolved love for so long. When the sky was completely dark, I decided to go home. When I got to my apartment in the West Village, I realized how it reflected the man I had become. Organized, functional, with some personal touches, books on the shelves, a plant or two, photos from my solo travels. A peaceful place, but not lonely. I opened a beer and sat on the small balcony, watching the city lights. New York never slept, always in motion, always reinventing itself. Like me. I picked up my phone again and typed a response to Rachel. It was good to see you too. Good luck with the decision about Boston. Whatever your choice, I hope it makes you happy. I sent the message and turned off my phone. I didn't want to see her response, at least not at that moment. I needed to think clearly, without the influence of her words. The next morning, I woke up with a strange sense of peace, as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Not because I had made a decision about Rachel, but because I had finally said everything that had been bottled up inside me for so long. During breakfast, I called my mom in Boston. I told her about the meeting with Rachel, about the conversation we had. "And what are you going to do, son?" she asked, with that maternal concern that never disappears, no matter how old we are. "I don't know yet," I replied honestly. "But for the first time, I'm not letting it consume me. Whatever the path, I'll be okay." "You've grown," she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. Yes, I had grown. Not just matured, but expanded. Found parts of myself I didn't even know existed. My resilience, my depth, my quiet strength. By losing Rachel, I had discovered who I really was. In the days that followed, we exchanged a few messages. Nothing too deep, just casual conversations about our day-to-day lives. She still hadn't decided about the job in Boston. I didn't pressure her. On Sunday, I received a message from her asking to meet. I suggested Central Park, a neutral ground. When I arrived, she was already there, sitting by the lake, throwing breadcrumbs to the ducks. "I decided to accept the job," she said. as soon as I sat down next to her. There was no sadness in her voice, just resolution. "That's a good opportunity," I replied. "You'll do well there." She turned to me, studying my face. "You're not upset?" I thought for a moment before answering. "No. I think it's for the best. For you. For both of us, actually." "What do you mean?" "We need this space, Rachel. This distance. To find out if what we feel is real or just the echo of something that has already passed." She nodded slowly. "Do you promise we'll stay in touch?" "I promise," I replied, and it was true. I didn't want to lose her completely, even if we never went back to what we were. We walked through the park, talking about future plans, old dreams, shared memories. There was a lightness between us that hadn't existed before. No expectations, no pressure, just two adults who had shared a story and were now writing their own chapters. When we said goodbye, the hug was longer, more sincere. There was no weight of uncertainty, just the acceptance that life takes unexpected paths. She left for Boston the following week. She sent me a picture of the view from her new apartment in Beacon Hill, with the Charles River in the background. I replied with a picture of the sunset in New York, seen from my balcony. I don't know if Rachel will be part of my future again, or if she will remain just a chapter in my past. One thing is for sure, I no longer live in silence. I speak, I feel, I choose, and that finally is enough.